At the end of this module, you will be able to trace the diasporic spread of African musical elements, identify African influences in jazz, blues, hip-hop, reggae, samba, and more, recognize contemporary African genres and their global impact, understand the technological and media tools enabling global African music, evaluate Africa's role in the modern global music industry, appreciate the political and cultural power of African music as global heritage. This final module explores how African music has profoundly influenced global music scenes, birthing entire genres, enriching cultural movements, and shaping soundscapes from the Americas to Asia. African music is not only a continent-based phenomenon, it is a global language carried across oceans and borders through migration, slavery, colonization, globalization, media, and cultural exchange. This module traces the transatlantic spread of African musical elements, the development of diasporic genres, and the ways in which African rhythm, melody, harmony, instruments, and performance styles have been integrated, transformed, and reinterpreted in new contexts. From the sorrow songs and spirituals of enslaved Africans in the Americas to jazz, blues, reggae, samba, hip-hop, Afrobeat, and Afropop, African musical DNA is the genetic code of modern music. We will also explore the return flow, how African artists today absorb global trends while retaining indigenous sounds, giving rise to hybrid genres such as Afro house, Afro trap, Afro jazz, Amapiano, Bongo Flava, and more. This back-and-forth exchange forms a musical ecosystem, with Africa at the center as both a root source and an evolving innovator. Through critical analysis, listening exercises, case studies, and cultural discussion, you will come to understand African music as a world-shaping force, deeply embedded in both historical trauma and creative power. The transatlantic slave trade and the diaspora's soundscape. Enslaved Africans carried with them musical traditions, rhythms, chants, and instruments, though often suppressed by colonizers. In the Americas and Caribbean, these traditions evolved into spirituals, work songs, blues, calypso, and gospel. African musical modes became survival tools, preserving memory, building solidarity, and resisting oppression. Birth of diasporic genres influenced by Africa. Jazz, rooted in African rhythm, improvisation, and call-and-response. Blues, born from field hollers and laments, reflecting African emotional expression. Reggae and dancehall draw upon African drumming, Rastafarian chants, and African liberation movements. Samba, Afro-Brazilian genre blending African rhythm and Portuguese instrumentation. Capoeira music, a martial arts dance form with African rhythm at its core. Cumbia, rumba, and mambo, Latin genres deeply linked to African percussion and syncopation. The African instrumental legacy abroad. The banjo, once seen as American, evolved from the West African ngoni. The berimbau used in capoeira has African roots. Percussion instruments like congas, bongos, shakeres, and claves are direct imports or adaptations of African idiophones and membranophones. Modern African influence on global pop and urban music. Afrobeat, Fela Kuti, blends Yoruba rhythms, jazz, funk, and highlife into a genre of resistance and pride. Afropop, modern African sound blending traditional elements with R&B, hip-hop, and pop, e.g. Wizkid, Tiwa Savage, Burna Boy. Amapiano, a South African genre fusing deep house, kwaito, jazz, and log drum bass lines. Bongo Flava, Tanzania. Coupe Décalé, Ivory Coast. G-Com, South Africa, and others show regional global fusion. Hip-hop and African roots. Hip-hop owes its rhythmic structure, emceeing, and breakbeat style to African griot traditions and call-and-response chants. African-American rappers often reference African identity, Pan-Africanism, and Black consciousness. Contemporary African hip-hop movements, like Nigerian hip-hop, South African rap, and Gambian freestyle reflect the return and re-ownership of global Black music forms. The role of technology and media. Satellite TV, the internet, streaming platforms, e.g., Boomplay, Spotify, YouTube, have amplified African music worldwide. Cross-cultural collaborations, e.g., Beyoncé's Black is King, Major Lazer in Africa, fuse Afro and global elements. Viral challenges, e.g., Jerusalema Dance Challenge, spread African rhythms globally through digital media. African music and the global festival circuit. African artists perform on world stages. Afro Nation, Global Citizen, Coachella, Essence Fest, Felibration. African DJs and producers are reshaping EDM and house scenes with African grooves. Traditional and contemporary African ensembles are mainstays in world music circuits and ethnomusicology conferences. The cycle of cultural exchange and innovation. African music is not static. It absorbs, transforms, and reimagines. From colonial mimicry to post-independence pride and Afropolitan identity, African music reflects political and generational shifts. Music becomes a language of Pan-African unity, resistance, love, and social change. Global African superstars and ambassadors. Fela Kuti, father of Afrobeat and musical revolutionary. Youssou N'Dour, Senegalese vocalist blending mbalax with global styles. Angelique Kidjo, Beninese legend, Grammy winner and fusionist. Wizkid, Davido, Burna Boy, leading Afrobeats into global pop. Black Coffee, Master KG, shaping global dance scenes with South African sounds. African music as global identity and soft power. African music is now a cultural export shaping tourism, fashion, film, and diplomacy. Music is a tool for branding African cities, building diaspora bridges, and telling Africa's own story. African music is no longer just influential, it is now in demand. Suggested activities. Listening. Comparison. Analyze rhythmic similarities between Afrobeat and funk. Create a global sound map. Trace African influence across continents and genres. Research a global African artist. Present their impact and music style. Compose a fusion track or playlist. Combine African rhythm with another genre. Watch a documentary. Afrobeats, the backstory, Africa, the beat, and reflect on themes.